I am not happy, guys. This ranking was ridiculous. Sony Pictures have always had a dodgy reputation, so as you can guess I was not looking forward to this ranking video, like in the slightest. 28 films. They have made 28 movies. That includes crap like the Smurfs and the Open Season franchise. My god. Well, I'm about to go in. Is Sony really that bad? Oh screw it, you guys probably know the answer anyway. So without further ado, let's get straight into this.
And his name is John C.
Surf's Up 2 is an insult of a movie. I don't even love the first one, but the blatant product placement in this is just disgusting. It's probably the worst of the Sony advertising, and that's saying a lot. This movie is just look how cool WWE is, guys. They are the greatest surf team on the planet.
The greatest surf team on the planet?
How could I forget that? They sure do like to ram that shit down our throats. Remember to watch WWE, guys. Also, the butchering of characters like Cody is just baffling. Everything he learns in the first movie, and I do mean everything, is just forgotten about. Where the hell did Big Z go? There is no mention of these fucking WWE surfers in the first movie. And of course they were never his idol. And Cody being jealous of Chicken Joe is just wrong. And also putting him and Tank in danger is just baffling. Like, who is this movie even for? It just fails on every level. Even the animation looks choppy as hell. It's one of the biggest swings and misses from a film that I've seen in a long time. This is one of the worst animated films I've ever seen. It's so pointless. There is no plot. The characters are absolutely butchered. It's junk. First class junk. The cherry on top of the shitty Pixar knockoff outtakes. Are you kidding me?
I hate my life. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
What an amazing start to Sony Pictures Animation. Open Season is fucking terrible. It looks like a TV movie, or a direct-to-DVD film. They obviously made it on the cheap to make money, and sadly it worked. The movie itself looks like doo-doo. I mean, the animation is from 2006, but I'd argue that Toy Story 2 looks better than this shit. And that came out in the last century. But man, these characters are just insanely nothing. Booth and Elliot are literally just Shrek and Donkey clones. Oh come on, they said that line on purpose. There's also this scene which is the same as the arrow in your butt scene in Shrek. And what about the completely unearned heart-to-heart scene that they also copied from Shrek? Don't forget the quirky German animal, because we have to steal off better animated films. The movie doesn't work on a story front because it's just a copy of other movies. We've seen this shit done a million times. And none of these moments work because there isn't a solid emotional heart to the story. We see Booth's owner for like 2 seconds. Do you really expect us to care? The voice acting in this is painfully grating. Both of the main characters sound like nails on a chalkboard. We also have all the stereotypes in the form of different animals. That's their whole character. There is nothing else to them. The story is Booth gets forced into the wild, but he doesn't like the wild because he lives in human civilization. And the whole movie is him trying to get home. He then realizes home was the friends he met along the way, and he decides to stay in the wilderness. Then there's this brilliant Lyra reveal at the end of the movie.
Oh, you're right, Elliot. It's your fault.
We also get some fake out scenes, including a death scene and leaving friends. And there's also some great Sony product placement. Also, the villain is so insufferable. And surely he should be dead after that, holy shit.
Hello, smelly it.
Ken from B-Movie is in this too. Sony just loves to copy DreamWorks, don't they? So yeah, Open Season absolutely sucks. But surprisingly, it's not the best Open Season movie.
I hate you, you know that? I really do.
Well, what do you know, it's another shitty Open Season film. This one is awful, like every single other one is. But at least it was pretty much a direct-to-DVD sequel. That's why the sequels are better than the original in my opinion. They're pretty much the same quality to be fair, but at least they weren't trying to make it a worldwide theatrical release. The plot in this one is so riveting. Strap in, guys. If you're standing up, you better sit down because you'll just shit yourself with excitement. The story is that Boog is annoyed that Elliot has a family and responsibilities, so he joins a circus, and Elliot struggles to look after his kids. Absolutely brilliant stuff here, guys. It is weird how similar this movie is to Madagascar 3. Did DreamWorks copy this movie? But anyway, a lot of this conflict is just so dumb. Like, why wouldn't Elliot's wife bring the kids to see their grandma? It's just really weird. Isn't she already aware that Elliot is a useless piece of shit? There's also great moments such as these PowerPoint transitions. Scorsese would be jealous at this. Oh yeah, and the bad guy from the second movie got neutered. That's incredibly weird for a kids movie. And the reason why this movie sucks so much is because of this circus section. It's never ending. The llama that spits everywhere is the cherry on top of this absolute train wreck. And because this is another Shrek ripoff, it literally ends with a song used in Shrek.
On the road again. On the road again.
This whole series is utter nonsense.
25.
You know what, Open Season 2 is actually better than the first movie. It's still fucking terrible though. This movie is very short, which works well in its favour. The first movie felt like it went on for a lifetime, but thankfully this one went quite quickly. And that's all I have to say for this. And yeah, that's just a backhanded compliment. This movie's plot is that the dog in the last one gets kidnapped and it's up to the animals to save him. And Elliot is a dickhead and doesn't want to get married. Yeah, that shit kind of comes out of nowhere. We have shit like Family Guy cutaways in this, which really shows the quality of the series. There is also the "we're back on the road again" scene, which is in every single buddy comedy sequel. I just hate these characters, man, and I hate the animation. Everything is really shit in this one. And sadly, this is another crap film that was released because of the success of Shrek.
24.
I'm just so sick of these open season films at this point. At least it had alright animation. This is how the first one should have looked, to be honest. It has the poop humour and some really annoying characters like the others. It's just awful. Why couldn't they just tell scary stories the whole time? That's what I was expecting. It just becomes bland, stupid shit again. And the forced separation near the end is so draining. It's more awful when you don't give a shit about these characters. Screw this whole franchise, honestly. It's one of the worst film series I've ever seen.
Bye, Felicia.
I took one look at the poster and decided to not watch this again. Screw that. I made a full First Class Junk episode on this absolute turd of a movie. So watch that for a full analysis. It's just another one which is so mean-spirited and corporate. I'm glad everyone trashed this shit. This really feels like a Lego Movie or Wreck-It Ralph ripoff. James Corden and TJ Miller are crushingly stupid in this. The premise itself is so stupid. It's rare that a film plot is so bad that there's no way to redeem it. And this movie somehow managed to do that. I mean, it still gets half a point for the animation, but that's about it. So for my money, this film is a nightmare, and I'm never watching it again. You can't make me. I hated just about every second of this god-awful film. I'm so glad they didn't make a third one, because Smurfs 2 is just vile. It's absolutely sickening. It's absolute crap. Its product placement is just evil. You guys remember Facebook? Don't forget to use Facebook, because that aged so well. Guys, I don't know why, but I really want a Sony tablet right now. Don't you think this looks cool? This is how you use our product. They even use mind control on the tablet. Buy the Sony tablet. Buy the Sony tablet. I could really do with some Tic Tacs right now. Oh, and how about some delicious Nutella? And you can't forget Scarface. That one was for the kids. The rest of this movie is just pure nonsense. It's pretty much the first one again, but in Paris. The CGI looks atrocious. I mean, just look at the cat, man. Brendan Gleeson is in this for some reason. And he also just assaults people the whole movie. And then he turns into a duck. That was my personal favourite moment. The poster has a tagline of "Nice gets naughty." That's probably one of the best poster taglines I've ever heard. Whoever came up with that one is an absolute genius. Also, why don't they save Smurfette at the start? They literally just stand still like NPCs. Save her! This movie could be over in like 20 minutes, but no. The filmmakers just want me to suffer. Then it ends on a dance number. That's the beautiful cherry on top for this movie.
21.
The Smurfs movie is hell on earth. Jesus H. Christ, guys. It's a nauseating experience. You thought Alvin and the Chipmunks was bad? Then watch this shit. I implore you to. Something is horrendously off with this movie. And my god, the amount of product placement in this movie is sickening. It feels like it's in every other scene. It's actually insulting to the viewer. I don't think I've seen a film that has this much of it. And the voice acting and acting in general is just horrible. Katy Perry sucks and pretty much all the humans do too. The story is obviously just as cookie cutter as it gets. It's just like, oh no, I hope Gargamel doesn't catch the Smurfs, and oh no, I hope Neil Patrick Harris doesn't lose his job. There's no stakes in this shit, man. Why couldn't they do a Lion King on us and kill one of the main characters? At least I would have felt something at that point. Even the slapstick just has no energy to it. The movie just fails on every level. It's quite shocking just how bad this movie is. I'll tell you what, it does make me want to play Guitar Hero though.
What the Sigma?
What was the actual point? Seriously, why does this film exist? In some ways I prefer a Smurfs 3, because at least they're so bad there's more to say about them. This film wanted to have its cake and eat it too. It tries to be more authentic and I guess it is, but there's still terrible pop songs throughout it. You couldn't just let that go, Sony, could you? They even have the I'm Blue song. It doesn't even work in the sense of the story. This is where the Smurfs find the lost village, and it could work if, you know, the original Smurfs weren't blue. Here it feels so out of place and it's just used for the babies to go, I know that song. The animation is good, but the character designs on Gargamel and the cat are just stupid. They look way too nice and clean for what are meant to be evil characters. The voice acting is also much worse than in the live action one. I can't believe I just admitted that. And this makes the film so bland. The cherry on top was the fake out death scene which went on for way too long. I don't even know where to rate this one. So many of the shit films on this list could be switched around and it wouldn't make a difference. So in many other ways this film is just as bad as the films before this one.
What's 9 plus 10?
You know, it's kind of hilarious that this disclaimer is hidden away at the end of the film. The same sort of message was in The Prince of Egypt, but at the start of the movie. And this statement being at the end of the film kind of tells you the whole quality of this movie. The Star is quite a bizarre film. I'm not a religious person at all, but I did go to a Christian primary school, and I at least respect some of the stories in the Bible. They can be done much better under the right hands. And to be fair, this movie was kind of okay for the first 20 minutes. It had okay jokes and it was paced quite well. But then the movie does an absolute nosedive and ends up being about Bo the donkey and his annoying friends. So yeah, it's just more dribble. These camels in particular feel like nails on a chalkboard. They are so grating. The film purposely uses modern slang and jokes to get kids into the story, I guess, and removing the blatant joke stealing from this movie.
No, if you name him, you're gonna start feeling affectionate toward him.
Once you name it, you start getting attached to it.
I think that kids are much smarter than the filmmakers think. Does it really need to be modernized to tell the birth of Jesus? If the modernization was executed better, then I would have been all for it. But it was just another swing and miss from the studio. And also, the animation is quite terrible for 2017. Also, why did Glenn from The Walking Dead turn into a donkey?
She told me she was 18.
What a mess, oh my god. Hotel Transylvania 4 is really bad. It's easily the worst one in the series. The movie's rotten to the core. It's terrible from the get-go. Why are we doing the disapproving dad plot again? It's ridiculous. This shit happened in the first movie. It's kind of insulting. I couldn't believe that they were doing that again. This sequel feels like a huge step backwards for the series. There are no interesting gags, nothing new to the universe, and it results in the film being tired slop. I hope that this one is the last one in the series because I don't know what else they could do with this franchise. The cherry on top is the Force Liar reveal, and what makes it better is that it's directly connected to Drac being a disapproving dad. That's just great. This is a very pointless sequel. It's inferior in every way to its predecessor. What was the point of Goosebumps 2? Why not have the original cast? To start off with, these kids are just way less interesting. The main two boys are just champ from the first movie, but they're just way less funny. There is no energy in their performances. They just blend into everything else. And the plot is that the main girl can't write, and then she has to write to save the world. So then she realizes she can write, and then she gets into college at the end. Wow, this is great storytelling, guys. They do try and make us care about them. Like when, oh no, the main character gets cheated on. This is so sad, guys. Maybe I would care more if the movie actually tried writing better characters. The worst part of this movie is that it feels like nothing happened. It feels so much smaller scale compared to the first movie. And that's because of the budget, of course. But then again, why make it anyway? There is nothing interesting in the way that the film shot or any of the action. Everything is just so uninspired and lazy. The effects look a lot worse than the first film. And again, it's because of the stupid budget. This movie feels like a step down in every way. Even the jokes don't land. At one point, a pumpkin says, "Happy Easter." Huh? Where's the funny? Where's the setup for that? I just don't get it. Jack Black is in the film for like 2 seconds, and even he seems like he just wants a paycheck. And side note, why did they throw Slappy in the river? They should have just finished him off with that bat.
16!
The director of this also made Flapjack. I'm just disappointed. Why is there love for the second Angry Birds film? Sure, it's far from the worst animated film I've seen, but then again, I've seen too many awful ones. It's just kind of unfunny and weak, to be honest. I didn't love the first movie, but I remember laughing a bit more than in this. The first one isn't a Sony film technically, so that's why it's not on the list. The plot is just all over the place, and it's a rehash of the first movie in some ways. Wasn't he just a loner in the first movie? Why do they just do this plot point again? Also, why is the main conflict centered around Eagle Island? Why is there an Eagle Island? Aren't they just birds? Shouldn't they be on, you know, Bird Island? Am I missing something here? The movie has a lot of cringe moments and the first 20 minutes were very bad. It does get a bit better, to be fair, but man, this movie just shouldn't have been made. Who was still playing Angry Birds in 2019? I guess I did enjoy the egg storyline with the little birds. And damn, that sea animation looks really good. Vivo is kind of annoying. I didn't really enjoy the experience. It's not shit, but it's a very skippable movie. It reminds me of Up, in the sense that the emotional hook is quite strong, and the rest of the movie is just subpar. But in Vivo, the rest of the movie is actually just not good. The first thing I thought was, did Vivo really need to talk? I was quite dumbfounded when I realised this was a musical. All the songs were grating. Sorry if you like them, I guess, because I know a lot of people do. The sort of villains are also really annoying, and the main girl is as well. They're just so unappealing to watch. They kind of give me Boss Baby vibes. The movie really lacks flavour once they leave Cuba at the start. I kind of wish the old guy didn't die, to be honest, and I kind of wish he lasted longer. Maybe instead of the actual story, have Vivo and the old guy go to Miami and he just dies before the concert or something like that. There, I just fixed the whole movie. The 2D animation segments are pretty cool, I guess, but that's about it.
14.
Okay, that cruise is literally the Titanic. What the hell? Hotel Transylvania 3 is quite a nothing movie. It's whatever. I didn't hate it. It's borderline bad, but I sort of enjoyed it, I guess. There's nothing offensive in this movie, but nothing really good either. Apart from the animation, of course, which is a good step up from the previous film. The villain and the love interest are fine, but I really didn't care for them, to be honest. Also, why doesn't anyone go up to stop Van Helsing? You guys could have easily stopped the third act right there. It's the weakest part anyway. So yeah, if you're a die-hard fan, you may get some enjoyment out of this, but I'm never gonna watch this again.
13.
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2 is okay, I guess. The first movie works so well because of its concept. It's such a fun idea, and sadly this sequel does indeed feel a bit sequely. The uncharted mysterious land plot has been done to death, and I don't think this offers much substance. The film is funny at points, I will give it that, but honestly it's just so unnecessary. It's far from bad, but I don't really care for it. There is the lie reveal stuff and Flint being an asshole, but as I said before, the movie's plot is far from engaging in my opinion, and it kinda just kept my interest purely for the jokes. And also I swear these strawberry people are just minions, and the movie's message is to save the animals. So they do save the food animals, but then they just catch sardines at the end. Sorry, what? Doesn't that completely underline the message? I'm sadly not really passionate either way on this movie quality wise. It just feels so skippable. And yeah, these new characters are kind of annoying.
I'm gonna get hate for this.
What? The Mitchells vs. the Machines is an okay movie. Can there be one list where I don't have a controversial opinion? At least I'm not lying to you guys. This film is full of cringe, man, and I don't think it's intentional. The stuff at the start is the most horrid. It's trying to be so hip with the kids, and the rest of the film is pretty meh to be honest. Nothing made me laugh, like at all. The conflict with the family is serviceable enough, but the actual conflict with the villain is just so nothing. It just feels really generic. I really don't get the love for this film to be honest. Also, why does the kid sound like 47? This movie has the same issues as Chicken Little, and that's not a good sign. Well, I can say it does have some very creative animation and it does bump it up a bit for me, but I really didn't get this movie. I didn't connect with it at all. This film was really celebrated when it was released and I was just a bit dumbfounded. I know I'm not fully alone on my opinion, but I do get that most of you guys love this film. I don't think it's bad, but it just wasn't for me.
11.
You know what, Wish Dragon is actually alright. It's kind of a hard movie to hate. It lacks a lot of the annoying animated film cliches, while still being a copy of Aladdin. Which is funny because I've never actually seen Aladdin. Don't kill me guys, the Disney ranking video will be made someday. But yeah, the execution is done well enough in this movie. The fast-paced animation and fun characters really add charm to this movie, and a lot of animated films lack these features. The animation itself isn't the best really, but it's made up with some cool animation sequences. Honestly, check this one out if you haven't already. I haven't got much else to say really. It's not a great film or anything, but then again it doesn't really do much wrong, and I was invested the whole time at least.
Number 10.
Hotel Transylvania is a pretty okay movie. It has likeable enough characters, and a predictable plot, but its premise keeps it likeable. There are far worse Sony animated films out there, and there are far worse Adam Sandler films. I think the story is just a bit too conventional at times to be one of the greats. Stuff like the pop culture references and the dance number at the end just make me scratch my head a bit. Johnny is literally just the member berry from South Park. He just says so much shit all the time, like just shut up for 5 seconds, man. However, the setup and the hotel itself are quite creative at times, and all the side characters are pretty fun to watch. The emotional core is fine too, but surely Dracula's wife could have gotten away. There's just so much space, look at it. But yeah, it's not a Halloween classic, but maybe you'll get something out of this film, because I think it's perfectly fine. The director for this produced the Shrek animation test. There's a random fact for you guys. Pretty weird that, isn't it? The Goosebumps movie is surprisingly likeable. It's a fun movie. Considering Sony Pictures Animation made this, it could have been a lot worse. This could have been absolute dog shit. That being said, it's not an insanely good movie, but I did enjoy it for the most part. I really liked Goosebumps as a kid, and I enjoyed the Twilight Zone style TV series on Nickelodeon. Just the whole eerie vibe to the stories made them really enjoyable but also a bit cheesy. And that is probably the weakest aspect of this movie. It just isn't there. This is a very corporate feeling movie with the cheese factor unfortunately in the wrong places. Like, what I would say is that the film does have a surprisingly good amount of decent jokes, but then again there is a lot of cringy ones. It reminds me of the MCU humour at points. And because of the quite tried and true story, there wasn't a lot of bite in this one for me. It's kind of like the original Jumanji film again, and it's executed fine enough, and I'm glad this movie exists for sure, but in some ways they should have just adapted one book. And to be fair, Jack Black is surprisingly really good in this, and he doesn't just play himself again like he does in other movies. Not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm glad he did something different here. He managed to play the snobby writer quite well. Also, do we need another Scarface reference? What is this shit? And for some reason there is a weird amount of motion blur in this film. I don't know why there's so much of it, and it's really distracting at points. Also, I like the subtle moment at the end with the 13 Reasons Why kid. A lesser film would have just had the character explain the sad scene that we just watched. But here it's explained without any dialogue. It's nothing amazing, don't get me wrong, but at least I know the people behind this movie actually tried. Fair enough guys, you did well. This is also proven with the R.L. Stine cameo. It's great honestly. The second Hotel Transylvania film is quite enjoyable to be honest. I think it's better than the first one. I think the story is even weaker than the first, which does let it down. But man, these characters are just so enjoyable to watch. The animation and energy in the movements are just really fun. And the slapstick is pretty good in this because of that. The film is also consistent with its humour. Much funnier than the first one in my opinion. And the animation is better of course, but that's a given. There is of course some Sony product placement, but to be fair it's not as bad as some of the other films, and I'm just beating a dead horse at this point. Like, it doesn't affect my enjoyment of the movie or anything. This film is at its worst when it plays the pop songs. It's probably the most forced soundtrack moments I've ever seen in a movie. It just breaks the whole pacing of the scene. It serves no purpose to the story. They literally just stop the movie and dance. It's not the ending yet, we don't need a dance number guys. I mean, what the hell is this? Also, Cal is the best character in all of fiction. You can't change my mind.
Yes.
Just do it!
You know what, I was really looking forward to Surf's Up. And to be fair, it just about delivered. It's miles better than a lot of the crap on this list. I enjoy the documentary style. I like that this movie was clearly trying something different with the art form. And even if the plot is a tad generic at times, the unique presentation and the charm of the movie shines through. I enjoyed all of the characters, and Chicken Joe is stoned and you can't prove me otherwise. And the animation is pretty good and holds up well. And it makes it a massive step up compared to Sony's first movie. There is some very forced conflict at the end, but it lasts like 5 seconds, so I can't really complain too much. But I think the film works the best when it lacks conflict. And I like the premise of the laid-back surfers chilling on the island. This movie made me really appreciate the voice talent with Shia LaBeouf and Jeff Bridges. The directing here was on point and both of those actors knew the assignment to a T. It's all good stuff. The movie has some jokes here and there, but it's not comedy gold or anything. I also wasn't the biggest fan of the score. It gets a bit too overbearing and I don't think it fits the surfing documentary style. I would really recommend this one if you're interested. It's far from a masterpiece, but I liked it well enough. It's a shame that this film didn't make much money. I guess people were just tired of seeing penguins in animated films at that point.
6.
Well, this is the most surprising movie on the list. Peter Rabbit is actually a really fun time. Who knew that you could do a live action adaptation this well? Take note, Alvin and the Chipmunks. The movie's plot is very basic, but it's one of the movie's strongest attributes. The film is just Peter Rabbit and his friends trying to get rid of the neighbour that just moved in. But the execution of the idea is quite good. The creative ways that the filmmakers thought of to terrorise this guy is just very amusing throughout. The slapstick is very good, and they even end up using dynamite at the end of it. The film also has several good jokes mixed in there, which results in a very easy watch. It flew by honestly, which was very refreshing considering a lot of the films on here dragged. Peter Rabbit himself is played by James Corden, which I know, he is so annoying, especially in stuff like the Emoji Movie. But I don't know, the script was good and the direction was good, so he was actually quite likeable. I'm not even ashamed to admit that. That may be because he mellowed out after smoking a joint at the start of the movie. Yeah, that's quite a weird reference in a kids movie, isn't it? There's also some good fourth wall breaking, which explains the plot in a refreshing way. It's all in the execution, guys, and this is how you do it. And although the second act low point could be seen by a mile away, it doesn't last long, to be fair, and yeah, it does make sense. Peter Rabbit is kind of a dick towards the end of the movie, and as fun as it is to see, it's kind of good that he learns to not terrorise people. I like the chemistry that Thomas and Bea have, and it makes sense when you learn that Will Gluck also directed Anyone But You. Margot Robbie is also in this, and sometimes her English accent isn't the best, but you know, I am just nitpicking at this point. And the best part of this movie was hands down Donald Gleeson as Thomas. He's so funny in this. So many lesser movies would have made him completely unlikable, but you can see that he has a heart. And man, some of the situations that this guy gets into is just so hilarious. He's mainly responsible for the laughs I got from this. Brendan Gleeson, your son knows how to pick films like this. I'm so glad that he didn't join you in Smurfs 2. So yeah, while it's not groundbreaking, Peter Rabbit is a surprisingly fun watch that I'd happily see again. Well, this film was surprisingly good. Fair play, Sony and Aardman. Arthur Christmas is a very good animated film. It isn't the best looking, nor is it the most groundbreaking, but its charm and likability really shine through. It's got a very good level of Britishness, and this results in a lot of charm. Some of the jokes in this are really funny, especially from the Grandpa Santa. This movie seemed to break the mold with Aardman as well, because it doesn't have a liar reveal or misunderstanding subplot. Finally! Took you guys long enough? And it proves that most movies like this don't need anything like that. All the characters are just very human and are not one-dimensional drones. There is a big rivalry between all the generations of Santa Claus, and you can understand everyone's motivations in this. Everyone has their issues in this film, but nobody seems too mean-spirited because they have other good qualities to them. And they also all learn and grow as people. And man, just seeing Arthur never giving up is just so engaging. The film is just really energetic and it constantly kept me invested. I really can't fault this one much. The only thing I would say is that the animation isn't the best. It kind of looks like the first Despicable Me.
4.
Pirates Band of Misfits is one of the best Aardman movies. I'm convinced that the Sony films are some of their best work. It's very solid. I wish they went with a UK title though. It's just way more fitting. It's also less generic compared to Band of Misfits. Why is this film so good? Well, I think a big factor is that it's just so funny. Like, shockingly more funny than I expected. And it still manages to have the Aardman charm. I mean, they mentioned Western Supermare for God's sake. I bet no American even knows what that means. The movie's humour works so well because of its mean-spirited nature. The jokes are more mature and are honestly quite edgy at times. And its writing and tone is very reminiscent to The Simpsons or even Shrek. This film constantly throws jokes at you and most of them work. All the characters are really funny, like the Charles Darwin incel played by David Tennant, and his pet monkey who just became intelligent because he dressed smart. Yeah, they literally say that's why he became intelligent. And the way he communicates is really creative too. The Brendan Gleeson pirate is fun as well with his Blue Peter badge. Again, I bet the Americans are so confused right now. And Queen Victoria is a really fun villain with a great motivation. The film sadly gets bogged down sometimes as the story beats are a bit generic. Like, do we really need a fucking liar reveal again? I'm just so sick of them. The movie did not need one in the slightest. Like, why do they say he's not a pirate anymore? Can't he just steal something again? And why would he trust his money with the bloody pirates? Apart from that shit, this movie is a really fun time. One of Aardman's best for sure, and it's also one of the best Sony animated films.
Number 3.
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is obviously one of the best Sony animated films. It's one of the rare instances where they managed to make a really solid movie. And I don't get the criticism that this film gets, but at the same time I can admit it's not a masterpiece. I think the movie's premise is very unique and engaging, and this makes the film very easy to watch. The movie's humour is pretty good too. There are many instances of me chuckling at some of the absurdist comedy. Sure, there is some dated jokes here and there, but at least it's not for that long, and actually plays an integral part to the plot. There is some generic tropes like with Flint Lockwood being a failed inventor, and of course like in a lot of Disney films his mum dies. But the execution here is pretty remarkable at points, so it doesn't really matter. The only gripes I had really were the obligatory second act low point with Sam and Tim. Didn't really need to see this, did we? Or if we did, maybe make it in a way that's a little less forced than this. Because I know that this movie is capable of executing other cliches quite well. But to be fair, Flint's arrogance is actually understandable. I just think this character is a bit too mean-spirited at points. And of course it's far from a deal breaker, but it's just a minor gripe really. The movie is just filled with so much charm, and the humour and especially the animation really help that. It looks pretty great for 2009 honestly, and it still holds up really well. It holds up miles better than this shit. And I will say I prefer the first half of the movie with all the different foods shown on screen. It gets really creative, and for me the third act just gets a bit generic. There's still all the creativity, but it just feels like the movie should be wrapping up at this point. Overall, as you guys know, this is a really good movie. Into the Spider-Verse is a very good movie. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but please hear me out. Well, what can I say about one of the most influential animated films of all time? I believe it's up there with Toy Story and Shrek on how influential it was to CGI animation. I heavily respect this movie. The soundtrack is amazing and really catchy. And honestly, it shows that a pop soundtrack can work and not feel forced when it's used in the right way. The animation, I mean, my god, look at this thing. It's incredible. It's the type of creativity that was needed so badly for the animation industry. Now every film wants to be the next Spider-Verse. The movie is paced pretty well and it has some incredibly likeable characters. Kingpin is also a very good villain, and his backstory makes you understand why he's doing the things he's doing. And you can't say that for a lot of the Sony films. But for me, I just don't love how the story's executed. Maybe it's just superhero fatigue, or just being sick of multiverse stuff in general. But I don't know, it just didn't invest me that much. The multiverse does result in a lot of creativity, but it just didn't do much for me personally. I really love the conflict between Miles and his uncle, but a lot of the other characters just didn't intrigue me as much. I mean, they were still done well, but I guess other aspects of this movie are so good that other parts just didn't engage me as much. It's still a really good movie, and I respect it to no end. It's easily one of the best Sony animated films, and you never know. This movie could get better once part 3 is released.
Number 1, let's go.
This is easily the best Sony animated film. Like, easily. It has the best animation, the best story, the best pacing, literally the best everything. This is truly a great animated film. I really enjoyed Across the Spider-Verse. This is another animated movie that raised the bar in what I expect from films like this. And I didn't think it was possible in some ways after the first movie. The glaring issue fixed in this one for me is the story. It's way more engaging than the first. The main central plot focusing on Miles wanting to save his dad is not only so interesting, but it also fits so well for a Spider-Man story. And this makes the multiverse part of the movie so much better than the first movie for me. The new villains are funny, and they also create an even bigger level of relatability than the first. It's one of those great films where you can understand everyone's perspective. Again, the fact that a film like this came from Sony is just shocking. The animation is also a great improvement from the first. The fact that they managed to outdo, well, this, is just a testament to just how much love and care was put into this film. And the blending of different art styles in this is a sight to behold in itself. It's been spoke about to death, so I won't go on for too long, but please watch this movie. For my money, it's one of the best animated films out there. Half of the movies were bad. Half of their whole filmography were duds. I just have no words. What on earth happened with this studio? Well, I'm glad that they seem to be stepping in the right direction at least. If it weren't for those very solid Aardman films, there wouldn't be many good movies here at all. This was a very hard list to get through. Probably the worst one yet. And sure, Sony do make better films than Blue Sky, but the sheer quality of awfulness on here was painful. Never again.
It's junk. First class junk.